confirm that it's running.
Twitch is running, YouTube is not.
Well, I don't know what to do. Confirm that it's running.
It's going now.
Okay, great.
Just delayed.
All right, well, welcome everyone to another Foolish Tech Show. It's Wednesday, January 18th, 2017. All right, well, welcome everyone to another crew, although we're without Brantley and Johnny today due to an emergency hospital visit yesterday. So all our minds and thoughts and prayers are with her and them this today. So next time, hopefully next time you guys see her, she'll be able to fill you in on all those details. We're here primarily to support our software and services. So please, anyone who has any questions, join us in our RRC chat. You can join us at foolishtechshow.com. And we'll be happy to, feel free to interrupt us. We're here for that and not for what we'll do otherwise, which is chatting about random shop stuff or technology or anything else that comes to our minds. And speaking of our own individual minds, everything we do say is only representative of us and not of the company as a whole. So it's my opinion, as are everyone else's. I hope everyone is doing pretty well today. Anything new, guys?
Well, I believe yesterday we mentioned that we were getting ready to release CryptoPrevent version 8 bulk, but hadn't done so yet.
Oh, yes, and we hadn't done that yet. That has.
So that's the big news. Is CPV8 the bulk version is now purchased. You can purchase it on our website, and in honor of the release, we're offering 50% off on all of our products. The coupon codes are on the website with the product items. So going over to the website and stock up on CryptoPrevent, and if you haven't tried our other software, please do. Get 50% off your first year of a subscription or first term of any subscription.
Well, that sounds great. I urge, obviously, anyone who is interested in any of our software to consider taking advantage of that. That is across, like you said, all of our software, not just CryptoPrevent, even though we're announcing it as part of the bulk release on that, as you mentioned. Let's see, can we post a page for that in the chat? Let me see. Where's our sale page? Is that on the main page of the? I'll go to the bulk. Yeah, there we go. So, having trouble juggling windows here, but yeah, there we go. If anybody would like to take advantage of what he just mentioned. So, otherwise, since I don't see anybody else mention anything in chat, I'll proceed. I know AJ, you Pool Networks. If you happen to be listening, I don't know that you are because I believe you're in another location. Just shoot me a line as we spoke about to support@foolishit.com whenever you need anything else. Let's see. So Phoenix has got a whole bunch of links, like I said, as usual. Let's see if we can distill this down here a little bit. So Phoenix looks like he has one in there about Netflix.
What about Netflix?
That they're killing DVD sales, but they put that in quotes, so I'm pretty sure that's not the full take on it.
Gosh, I don't remember the last time I bought a DVD. I just don't even see the purpose anymore.
Yeah, well, that's basically the gist of this, is that DVD sales seem to be...
I mean, I do rent a movie at the Redbox every now and then, but...
Yeah, so basically video streaming services displace physical DVD sales. That's a quote. So the better the streaming opportunities are, and as they continue to improve, those sales will decline. Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't think that's groundbreaking news for anyone. But they do still have a large number of DVD subscribers. Despite that, there's still always going to be those older school customers that just prefer that, or do not have access to a streaming service, or maybe have very poor internet connections, or any number of reasons. But it's nice to have the options. I always hate these stories about impending demise of things. They're often way in advance of it actually happening. You know, I would have a hard time believing stamps would still exist today, but obviously that's the case. Okay, so there was that. What else? Ooh, Hacker News has an article about connected cars and what the feds have been spying on us with them. It doesn't seem like they could have been doing this for too long. Cars have only... They're covering something called car tapping. Yeah, so they give an example. In 2014, satellite radio and telematics provider SiriusXM provided location information. This is a direct quote, by the way, from the Hacker News article that Phoenix posted. Provided location information of a Toyota 4Runner following a warrant by New York police. So if, I don't know if you're familiar with most of those smart cars these days, but they almost always come with, at the very least, a minimum of a free trial subscription to satellite radio.
Yeah.
And so this would make it appear that any of those people that have ever taken advantage of that can apparently have their vehicle tracked. Okay, the way it was achieved was they turned on the mechanism for stolen vehicle recovery. It's basically like Find My iPhone, but for your car. Sirius claims they just work with law enforcement when they're asked. General Motors seems to be doing this on the regular as well for its OnStar data. Apparently it's very accurate to the point of specifically locating a car in a very busy interstate. They didn't, so they didn't know about the car, even what they were looking for, and they were no, that's funny. A whole bunch of stories.
But just face it, if you're connected to a network, it's possible that there's no way to 100% secure you. If you're connected to a network, you could fall victim to something like this.
Here's a powerful statement.
Am I? Okay.
Yes, you're fine.
Okay.
I can hear you at least. In all cases, quote, attempts to have, well, this is all a quote, but in all cases, comma, quote, attempts to have the evidence thrown out floundered, I think is what they want to say there. The government was able to argue that as a warrant was signed off, there was no longer an expectation of privacy. So the minute they get a warrant, now do note that they still have to go through the procedure for getting the warrant for this to, typically for this type of thing to occur. So you're probably already doing something you shouldn't be, I would imagine, but I hate to say if they, extend these laws, you could just be arbitrarily stopped without actually having committed a crime. So yeah, if you want to avoid this, basically, your only option is to avoid purchasing a new car. So apparently it's so pervasive among all manufacturers that you literally would have had to purchase your last car prior to all this happening to get out of it. If you're not excited by the news. What else?
Well, it looks like Samsung has some more bad news. Their hackers can remotely access your Samsung SmartCam security cameras.
Oh, this is it. We've talked about this before, security camera compromises. And does it say anywhere in there how widespread that was, or how many devices affected? Yes, it's bright and early in the morning for AJ. Good morning, AJ. Glad to see you're in there. And hello, Futures Tech crew. Sorry for not noticing your arrival. I had thanks for sharing that Ars Technica article. Really appreciate that. I had been wanting to dig into that, and it looks really interesting. I've always thought that, I've always believed in the Occam's razor approach. If the simplest explanation is usually the right one. And this even works if you know anything about quantum mechanics. Quantum mechanics solve problems by finding the lowest energy state of something. So if you want to equate it, lowest energy is simplest. And we can further refine our understanding of gravity, for instance, and potentially not have to come up with a completely new idea like dark energy or dark matter. And it's great to have theories and possible reasons for the explanations of all these things, but oftentimes they're not nearly as spectacular as what you would think. People like, oh, dark matter, dark energy, you can't see it, it's there, it's very mysterious. So it's a neat little idea for people to throw around in their brains, and it's great for thought experience. It's great for research work. However, the real world usually has far simpler explanations for things, and it looks like this article is suggesting that if we redefine gravity a little bit and our understanding of that, we may not need to rely upon those other explanations. So that's very good, I think. Let's see what else. Yeah, I think we talked about that, attacks against medical marijuana or marijuana shops. Let's see what else. All right, maybe I can find a couple of other articles. Gonna stay away from the political ones. Let's see. And please jump in and interrupt me in case you guys have something more involved. I thought here was an interesting little thing that I read this morning, actually. I'll put it in the chat. There's, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, but synthenasia. But it's basically when two or more of your senses are kind of overlapping, in the sense that you might see something or hear something that produces maybe a smell or a sound. And it turns out to possibly be a bit more common than they initially thought. They initially thought that this was extremely rare, but it's apparently so subtle that you might not even realize that you're different than anybody else necessarily. Again, I have some questions about the test methodology specifically, but it is interesting. And I've always felt that if we were able to identify the people that do have these strong strong sense overlap like that, they could be engaged better. In other words, a lot of times these people end up being able to do almost unimaginable calculation feats in their minds with math or things like that, because they see numbers as colors. And they're able to provide solutions based upon what's visually appealing to them. Anyway, it has some great applications for those fortunate individuals, and may also help them be more comfortable with understanding themselves, and and take advantage of that. Looks like Russia extended Edward Snowden's asylum to 2020. I'll post mention of that since Snowden's very popular in the tech world. I will note that despite Phoenix posted a story a little way back about the our outgoing president's commuting of sentences, and it does not look like he's going to do anything for Snowden, but nothing was expected either, so it shouldn't be a terribly large surprise. And it looks like Snowden will be applying for Russian citizenship. Don't know what's involved with that, but I'm guessing that 3-year extension is for that, and so it probably takes roughly 3 years. Just wanted to point that out because it's extremely, even if you argue that we have currently lax standards, it's an extremely long, multi-year process, and their background checks may not be as high as ours. I don't know. Interesting. And it looks like there are still thousands of Note 7s in use, and it looks like they're gonna make all non-911 phone calls sent to Verizon's customer service. Wow, that's kind of a big step. And let's see. According to Reuters, I believe, there was a cyber attack that took out Ukraine's power grid. Ukraine, so that's a little bit too broad. Northern Kiev. So, as we reported yesterday, we put out some statistics about some squirrels and other animals' attacks on infrastructure. This might be the first case where we may start to now see real cases, and as we start to document them and measure them, we'll see where our real cyber threats stack up against our squirrel and other animal natural threats. It'd be interesting to see. There's pretty high leads though, so this comes up to be only about like the second or possibly third successful documented attack like that, but I'm sure more will be coming. These things tend to get worse before they ever get any better.
Did you mention the FTC sues Qualcomm for allegedly violating competition laws?
No, I didn't. I think that's interesting to point out, but got any more specifics in
well,
like
apparently Qualcomm's agreement with Apple from between 2011 and 2016, the FTC claims that Qualcomm demanded exclusivity from Apple and offered reduced patent royalties in exchange. The chipset maker prevented Apple from buying processors from competitors and imposed royalty payments to make it unprofitable for Apple to contract other companies. Later on, Apple was able to reach an agreement with Qualcomm to lower the royalty cost that would help the company save money for the production of the iPhone. But apparently, the FTC has filed suit for what the agreement they had between 2011 and 2016.
Okay, well that's interesting. Listen, AJ Cool Networks has a CryptoPrevent question in the chat. Can you just keep an eye on that to make sure we address that? Not sure what it is. It's probably related to what we were working on yesterday, I imagine. So his, okay, he may not want to, he might want to discuss it later. We'll see. I know he might be busy. It's very early for him. All right, so let's see if I find anything else. And feel free, anybody else in the chat, to throw out random
dead.
stuff, even if you don't have a question about our software. I'll be happy to discuss that if Futures Crew has anything, or anyone else for that matter. Let's see.
Well, it looks like 3D television is dead, or at least for now. I guess I should post the link.
Well, that's interesting. 3D has been, you know, has it stopped in the box office? Because I thought that had died down.
In theaters, yeah, they're still doing 3D strong, but this is in your television sets.
Oh.
Which I don't think I own a TV that has 3D capabilities. But LG and Sony were the last two major TV makers to support 3D features in their TVs, and they will stop doing so in 2017.
Yeah, there's just no.
Apparently, it just didn't take off.
Profits. I would argue that's the same way in the theaters, but apparently they're still able to have sales levels. Maybe kids want just the 3D experience, as a novel thing. But it basically all comes back to the same problems with 3D and the way that they've implemented it. It's always an issue for long-term exposure, for there to be problems with your eyes or getting headaches potentially. There's the glasses, involved in them. And
if your content isn't prepared properly, it just doesn't look right in 3D in the first place.
Yeah, so there's a lot that has to go in to make a good thing. And it's like in the 70s, I believe, was when they found this out, or much earlier. I don't know exactly when, but they started to make like every movie 3D, and then they realized, oh, maybe that's not a good idea, and then they stopped, and like all of a sudden now they came back within the past like 5 or 10 years. They came back with it, but there really hasn't been any technological huge advance in the area to offset the initial concerns. And so, yeah, I'm in agreement. I was just looking at. Oh, okay. So AJ, I told you to keep an eye on it. All right, he asked his questions. Let's see. So he's so basically he had a white label creator issue yesterday, where his lower half wouldn't show, just the top half, with his registration information, almost as if his product wasn't registered. Yeah, so that issue with the reboot when the silent install, that we found a case where that could happen, although I was not able to actually reproduce that in my testing. The issue, that's issue number 2 he's pointing out. If you select reboot when doing a silent install, it appears as protections do not get applied. I wasn't able to reproduce that, but we're putting in a, we're changing the way that's going to be done, so it should catch more situations where the protections aren't properly applied and the PC reboots. I'm told that will be put out in the next point release, and that's being worked on currently. So I expect that to be out within the next couple of days. Don't hold me to that, but it should be very shortly. As far as applying the settings, there is a /apply ini command line parameter. Did you see that when I typed that in? I'm not seeing. I just typed in. I should have asked. I don't know if AJ's watching the stream or not. Is he? I guess he is. Let's see. The systray icon exposes the password for the email account being used. Systray icon. Yeah, if you go to, well, I guess you can launch the interface through the icon. So we're aware of that, and there is a option in the white label, in the newest version of the white label creator. There should be an option to prevent the email settings from being changed, and so that will basically not expose the email password. So you should be able to currently do that. Now, as far as why you can't get the bottom interface to open, I'm not clear, though he did have a previous version installed and there was an upgrade that took place. So I would follow a few steps here. Let's see. If you can just give me a moment, I will find something for you. Okay, well, if that's the case, if it's a new machine and a new install, AJ, the only thing I can think that would be then would be a problem with your actual product key and actual registration for some reason. But obviously that's not information I would like you to share in the public chat. So if at all possible, could you send or if you can just wait till after the show, but if you could send a quick email to there and just make sure you put in the product key you think you have, and we'll just verify it against our records, and we'll do what needs to be done to get the account in good standing. I'm not really clear what's going on there, and I really don't have the time just now to look into the details in your specific account. But like I said, most of those other things I think can be addressed, especially the password issue, and that should be able to be done immediately. So I'll get with you very shortly after the show ends today, and get all that squared with you, AJ. Thank you so much for your patience, though, in the communication. I know it's tough with where you are and whatnot, but obviously, certain stuff can't be discussed in public like that. So we'll deal with that. Let's see, and get back to the other chat now. Let's see. But if okay, yeah, I was gonna do this. So the I'm excited. And he says, AJ says it's 6 a.m. there, so he has all day. Yep. So this was a review, seemingly random review of an NVMe device. They're all the rage. This is the evolution of traditional SATA SSDs. NVMEs can bring dramatic performance, but just simply moving to that interface doesn't bring anything with it unless there's improved flash design. So previously they had a whole bunch of NVMe drives that you could connect that that were not offering the same, because they were effectively just converting their traditional SATA-based SSDs with the existing SATA controllers and just running it over that interface. And that doesn't provide a benefit. That's still, and you're inherently limited by the SATA 3 standard. But the ones that were newly coming out, I believe, like this one, if the numbers are correct, and I believe they are, this one is using the full PCI Express 4x bandwidth. So that's a tremendous amount more, up to 32 gigabytes a second, I believe. And the performance is about anywhere from 2 to 4 or more, 2 to 5 times the speed of a traditional SSD. And that may sound impressive, but it's still, unfortunately, not going to be the same bump as we all saw when we moved from mechanical hard drives to SSDs. That was such a huge jump. It was night and day. Anybody could recognize it and notice it without the need of a benchmark. It just, they felt it. It's not necessarily the case with this, and that does put a damper on it. There are going to be use cases where you're going to see much improved performance, but like game load times are relatively low at this point with modern SSDs. You're probably not going to see a dramatic improvement in some of those things. But as more of these are released, it's just going to bring the cost down, and I think very shortly here we're going to start to see them get to the point where they're economical for most users who are looking for faster storage. And I'm hoping too that the conventional, more mainstream SATA SSDs will now be so cost effective with these new parts on the market that hopefully even the lowest machines will be able to incorporate them. And I think that's a boon for everyone, because storage subsystem performance is still one of the slowest areas, particularly on a budget PC purchase. So I'm hoping for that. Okay. I'm not recommending this drive. I just wanted to show you an example. I'm kind of partial to Samsung's drives, particularly I have an 850 Evo. I was potentially looking to upgrade to the 960 Evo. Some of the smaller manufacturers aren't able to create large capacity drives, and the NVMe form factor is much smaller than 2.5-inch hard disk form factor, which is typical of SATA SSDs. That being the case, you have to have pretty much the most advanced manufacturing capabilities to be able to pack more than roughly 500 megs on one of those guys. And like Samsung, of course, is able to do that, and they have terabyte offerings for that form factor. But most of the other guys stop at about 500. So it's not necessarily a cost-effective option for extremely large storage, but it's getting there. And as that improves, of course, we'll see larger and larger capacities in that form factor. I don't see that to be a huge problem. But like I said, Samsung seems to have a slightly better reception, and their pricing is so good because of their volume. It's hard for anybody else to compete. There are products that do better, but it really, when you're considering both performance and price, my opinion is that they rule the roost right now. Although that could change as we see more of these guys enter into the market. So it's kind of cool. What else? It's always important to upgrade your graphics drivers if you're a gamer, to have the highest performance in your games and to have any compatibility problems resolved. This goes the same for both Intel, AMD, and NVIDIA. You always want to use your most recent driver. Probably as a general rule, almost all of the drivers, I would say, you don't necessarily have to worry about upgrading unless there's a problem. But I'd say that in the specific case of graphics drivers, it's the need to do it is much greater. Oh, and AJ Cool Networks Project said he actually has a Samsung 960 EVO 1TB, and he says, "Wow, it is fast." That's good to know. I've only read the reviews, and while it was hard to, it's hard to believe those numbers. I never saw, I never felt it in the real world. So I don't know what you came from previously, AJ, but if you came from a more traditional SATA SSD, if you came from a hard drive, obviously I know why you're saying, wow, it's fast. But if you came from a traditional SSD, please let me know how you thought that upgrade to the 960 EVO was. If you thought it was a significant boost. Yeah, 2 to 4 times. So he's corroborating basically the figure. I said 2 to 5, but yeah, sure. Do you see it in your real world usage, AJ? I guess is my question. Oh, he came from traditional. Darn. Oh no, he came from traditional SSD. Okay. Well, I'll wait for him to address that. If he thinks it's as big of a boost as when he first went to an SSD from a mechanical hard drive. But at any rate, drivers are important for video, particularly, and AMD's got a new one out. Same applies for, like I said, to NVIDIA. If NVIDIA puts out a new driver and you're a gamer, you should probably consider upgrading. I'm not big on these portable or these wearable watches and devices as such, but it looks like there's a line of, or Google has got with LG to produce the first Android Wear 2.0 devices. It looks like there is cellular, connectivity with these as well. And they have apparently pretty nice OLED screens. 1.38 inches. Yeah, they do kind of look cool. A little neater than everything else. And I probably feel a little bit more comfortable with something looking like that on my wrist than I think what that original watch was, at least personally, at least. It's a 1.3 inches screen, 480 by 480. There's 768 megs of RAM versus 512, and larger internal storage and more battery power. And it looks like it's going to be a huge bump up. So that's good. It's very good. So Carmack is accusing Zuckerberg of stealing the 3D stuff behind Oculus. And of course, Zuckerberg denies it. I don't even know if that's worthy of posting a link to. Nah, I'll go ahead and post it. Did I say 3D? I meant virtual reality. I'm confused. There's the article. And this is something that a lot of Mac users had been upset, is that Apple doesn't offer high-end RAM options, but it looks like they will be offering 32 gigs, and that'll go along with an upgrade to the whole platform. But it looks like it's going to start to use the newer processors and going to have larger memory options. Brantley's big beef with some devices, particularly Chromebook devices, have been that they have extremely small amounts of memory, and they're often not upgradable. And I think he would appreciate that.
Yeah, it's really strange that Apple hasn't already offered the ability to install more RAM in the MacBook Pro, which is not a very high-end laptop and generally used for very intensive applications. So it's really odd that they haven't previously done that.
I thought so as well. So we've talked about. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I know the processors that they use in them are capable of addressing the RAM, so I don't know why they haven't previously done that.
Yeah. They're. I mean, it's got to come down to cost. And they had their previous models, I think, were.
Oh, I know what it is. We're talking about laptops. Okay, yeah. Yeah, the cost of the actual DIMMs are pretty expensive.
Yeah. And adding more slots is making things heavier and things like that aren't necessarily a good option. And sometimes the best RAM prices aren't in the highest density modules, possibly, I guess, depending. And there was issues previously too when DDR3 and DDR4 were overlapping more, and there was certain power efficiency to low level or DDR3 low power parts. But all of that with a little bit of time. I think DDR4 has largely made a moot issue, and the densities have gone up. So I don't think. Hopefully, we'll see a lessening of that. We've talked about cooling performance in the past, and we were, I believe Brantley and I had a little back and forth regarding complete or immersion, and that is an interesting article that Anantech has showing off. It's not in depth, I would say, but it at least shows off a completely submerged, what looks like it's a server. Yeah, this looks like it's basically a rack mount server submerged. And so cooling and the associated cost of cooling are a huge factor for data centers. And which is basically the infrastructure behind, when you have cloud computing and you require additional processing power, it's typically taken from a data center, I would imagine. At any rate, those costs are huge for, as you can imagine, the high density of equipment and power that they have and storage volume that they have in those places. And so this does focus on exactly the type of liquid that they're using. And that's another thing I had mentioned previously, that I thought water was pretty good. But it looks like this particular demonstration is they say exactly what the composition of the liquid is. I won't go into it because I can't pronounce most of it, but there are some ether and methyl. It doesn't matter, but anyway, they're basically just trying to improve upon water's properties in those areas, and I'm guessing it just based upon the percentages. It still is. Well, actually, 70. Maybe it's not water at all. That's interesting. I thought it may have been something that they were adding to water, but maybe it's a completely different solution. But it has very high heat transfer properties, and that's why they're apparently able to cool that big of a power source, or that server that they have is pretty substantial. It's interesting. I'm going to look into that a little bit more. Although I don't think. I think it might scare a couple of people to see some of the shots with the liquid and a server that's probably very expensive.
It is very interesting.
Let's see. All right. What else? So, and we've talked about this too before, you know, basically viruses, malware, all those things, they're popular problems in the sense that, when it took a while for them to be Mac and Linux, viruses in that regard. Now it's not the case. And if you still believe that that's the case, this is an Ars article detailing some new malware that was discovered, Mac malware, that also works really well under Linux. So it's a little bit cross-platform there, and how it may have been circulating for 2 years.
Wow.
And it looks like the court did not agree with this guy's argument that opening up his phone violated the Fifth Amendment. So they're basically saying it's not testimony, and it's basically the same as turning over a blood sample. Is that what they're saying? Probably need to look into the details of that a little bit more, but it may set precedent for such cases moving forward. We've also talked about consoles before. Here, looks like here's a report of the sales on the two leading consoles, which obviously are the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4. Looks like PS4 is selling 2 of their boxes for every 1 of the Xboxes, but Microsoft's products are generally doing better than they did compared to their previous generation. Certainly seems like Sony's got the volume, though. To give you an idea, I have a nephew who has an Xbox One, and a father who has a PlayStation 4. So it'll be interesting. So Android One might be coming to the US. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with the price of cell phones is extraordinarily high. They're going for like, the top models are coming in around $700 or in excess of $700 for the retail cost of the phones. And this is going to bring the phones down to the Google One phones are going to be in the $200 to $300 range. So you're talking about cutting the costs of Android phones by more than, in half or more. That's pretty impressive. I thought the One was only going to be sold to other countries, but it's great to see that they're able to.
It was originally meant for to be sold in developing markets like India.
Yeah.
And original units were priced around $100, but the second generation was moving to the $200 range.
Mm.
It looks like the U.S. devices would release around $200 to $300 range.
Yeah. So But that's good. That could mean that those cell phones that you get for your kids or whatever are going to be a lot more affordable. And they're probably great devices for, I'm sure there's not going to have the feature set of the higher end ones, and they're probably going to have smaller screens and lower resolutions and not as good cameras, and I'm sure a whole slew of other compromises. But I honestly don't think everybody actually who purchases the $800 phones or $700 or $800 phones that they currently do fully takes advantage of those things. It's like, does everybody that buys Microsoft Word need to use all of Word's features, or did they just need a general word processor? This may be an opportunity for some savings, I hope. Bad news again for the heat recorded on Earth over the course of the past year. So for the third year in a row, it's been the hottest year ever. 2016 was hotter than 2015, which held the record, which is hotter than 2014, which held the record. So we're breaking records year over year with that. And this is data going back quite a while. What do we got from at least 19? We've got data from 1880. And there's some pretty neat tables in there just to give you an idea. Now, if you look at the actual change, it is, you're talking about points, degrees, not even full degrees, but it doesn't take much. And the trend is a little bit disturbing. So
yeah, 2016 was about 1.2 degrees Celsius warmer than the late 1800s.
Yeah, and once we start to get in multiple degrees Celsius above those temperatures, species start to die, sea levels change, and a lot of other effects come into play. And we're not yet at that, I guess, 2 Celsius mark, but if year over year we're breaking those records, it won't be long. So I didn't know this was a problem. I'm not sure that anyone else did either, but there apparently is consumer problems with using toilets in Japan. I don't know, is that foreigners using toilets in Japan? So, oh boy, wow! Look at these graphics. Yeah, so visitors to Japan. They have something called a super toilet, which combines a lot of functionality of like a bidet and a regular toilet and a dryer and some other things. And apparently, the buttons the buttons weren't well labeled previously, and so a foreigner, somebody that's not familiar with the devices, would not know what button to push to make what they wanted happen. So they're now showing the new symbols here in this article. And I must say they are somewhat self-explanatory.
Yeah. And somewhat comical.
And somewhat comical, too. But clearly you could see it would be straightforward to know how to open and close the toilet. There apparently is front and rear versions of the bidet and flushing. Is that true? Is that front and rear flushing as well?
I'm not sure what the difference is between the two flushing icons.
Small flush, large flush.
Yeah.
Raise the lid, raise the seat, large flush, small flush, rear and front bidet, dry, and stop. And honestly, the stop button's standard, square, black square, which would make sense. The air looks like air. And the flushes actually do pretty much look like big and small flushes. And it's very clear what the front and rear bidet are doing actually. But is that front bidet what
I'm a little unsure about that one.
I'm wondering what they were implying by that. Anyway, it's a little comical. Excuse the toilet humor today, folks out there. My apologies if it's disturbing to you.
Yeah,
But
and the pun. I just like the idea of a large flush. That's what got me into this.
yeah, I will say that there are times when you don't need to use as much water, and there are times when you need as much as possible to empty, you know.
Most definitely.
And this could be a great way for people to save water if they can use the smaller flushes at certain times.
Sure.
And yeah,
Mhm.
there's a lot of I didn't even consider, and I wanted a bidet for a while, and it'd be nice if they could standardize that on all of our toilet units. Um, but yeah, awesome. Okay, well, I'm glad I shared that actually. Yeah. Um, apparently, I don't really care so much, but I'm not sure if anybody's interested in this at all, but I'll share it. Looks like the creators update that's coming is going to include an ebook and a bookstore, ebook delivery. Just purchase ebooks from the Microsoft Store, I guess, and have them be read in Microsoft Edge. Probably be somehow. I'll probably force you to open up an Edge so that you can't read
Hi
them in
everyone,
any other
today
browser. I'm not. I don't see that as a good thing. Why are they wasting their time with ebook readers and ebook stores instead of spending their time fixing the bugs in Windows 10 and improving the privacy and doing all those things that I think many more users would depend upon rather than the books. Did you go over that regarding that Samsung camera hacking or not hacking? Excuse me, exploiting. Did you know how hard was that? Particularly like easy or hard, or was it a huge flaw? I'm wondering. Let's see.
I didn't get into it that much.
Okay, so they compromised the web interface for the cameras. Yeah, that's pretty bad. Okay. Well, if I find anything more about that, we'll follow up with it tomorrow. But which article did you post? I don't remember. That was a little.
I didn't post it. I think Phoenix posted it. Let's see if I still have it up. Yeah, here it is. There's one about the Samsung SmartCam.
Okay. Yeah, that's Hacker News. Okay, I've got an Ars Technica take on it as well. And they are going over how. That's why I was saying they're noting it was very easy and that this should have been even avoidable and avoided. So I hope the manufacturers of these devices take it to heart and start to consider security from the very inception of the devices they want to sell. Because it seems pretty bad when you've got to have millions of you have millions of devices in the channel before you even realize there's a problem. But I guess that's the way the world is today.
Well, it looks like we're getting past our time for today.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and wrap it up. Sorry, guys, I know it's a little bit different today with Brantley being indisposed, but we'll hopefully be back to a little bit closer to normal tomorrow. You can join us then at 4 p.m. tomorrow. Today's still, it's Wednesday, 4 p.m. on Thursday and 6 p.m. on Friday. And I want to give a shout out to everybody that joined us today, including AJ with Cool Networks, and the Futures crew, and Phoenix and Shuk if you happen to be around. We do appreciate the participation, and we hope to see you again in the very near future. That being said,
Also, don't forget our 50% off sale. 50% off all of our products. We're doing this to recognize the release of CryptoPrevent version 8 bulk edition. So now you can get version 8 in bulk packs. And to recognize that, we're offering 50% off on all of our products, which would include CryptoPrevent version 8, D7.2, D Support Suite. So get to our website and check that out. All the coupon codes are on the site with the items. I guess that's it.
Yep. And I think we also sent out newsletters on that, so check your emails as well for additional information. That being said, Proctor, take us on out.
All right.